Welcome to Lovecraft Audio. I hope you enjoy the story. I was making my poor classmate Ju Ye warm my feet when I suddenly saw a tragic, death-filled script of my future unfold before my eyes. Shocked, I pinched his cheek. "Puppy, if you get rich in the future, are you going to kill me?" The boy with the cold face and murderous eyes replied, "Yes, I will definitely kill you." The words were exactly as in the script. I deliberately leaned closer, gently touched his chapped lips, and whined, "Don't, I'll be your puppy in the future. Please don't kill me, okay?" His ears turned red, and the loathing in his eyes instantly froze. I didn't hesitate to mock him. "Oh, you lost your first kiss." He turned and stormed away in anger. Not long after, I quietly changed my name and moved to another city. 6 years passed like this. When we met again, he had indeed been acknowledged by my grandmother and returned to the family, becoming a multi-billionaire. He looked at me with eyes that could kill. I smiled innocently. "Puppy, long time no see." "Oh my, why is he crying?" After my parents passed away, I became the sole heir to the family business, and everyone flattered me. Except for my poor classmate Ju Ye. He didn't hide his disdain and disgust for my arrogant personality. Once he rejected my confession again, and even threw the scarf I knitted into the trash in front of everyone. I angrily slapped him. "Ju Ye, before long you'll be begging me to take you back." Those were just tough words. Before I could even figure out how to continue pursuing him, I was driven crazy by my incompetent teammates in the game. Just as I threw my phone down, I received a call from Ju Ye. "Kang Yu, if you have a problem, come at me. Don't touch my mother." My brain froze. "Who touched your mother?" He was so angry his voice was trembling. "You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it. If anything happens to my mother, I won't let you people off." I was furious. "Slander. This is blatant slander. If I did anything bad, I'd grab a loudspeaker and announce it to the whole world." There was a knock on the door. It was my childhood neighbor, Shen Kui. "Kang Chang, did Ju Ye apologize to you yet? I already taught him a lesson for you. His mother is in our hospital, owing over a year's worth of medical fees. I had someone throw her out. He dared to humiliate you in front of everyone, so he should have known there would be consequences." I jumped up on the bed, clapping excitedly. "Shenke, why didn't you say Ju Ye was in debt sooner? I have money. I have tons of money." I immediately got out of bed and started putting on makeup. Shenke frowned. "He treated you like that and you still want to find him?" He stepped closer, his voice deepening. "Kang Chang, what do you even like about him?" I was busy applying lipstick, not paying attention to Shenkuo's gloomy face behind me, and just laughed as I replied, "I don't know. It's just like I have to like him. From the first time I saw him, I knew he was the one." "Shenke, why do there have to be so many reasons for love? Life is short. We should live happily and just follow our hearts." He narrowed his eyes, his thin glasses concealing the emotions flickering in his dark eyes. "Kang Chang, your lipstick is smudged." He approached, a gentle smile on his face, his cold fingers brushing around my lips, and he whispered, "Kang Chang, your lipstick is really sweet. You like it?" I put the lipstick in his hand, grabbing my purse and preparing to rush out. "Then it's yours." "Kang Kang." Shenque smiled, holding my wrist tightly, the strength light but restrictive. I couldn't break free. I tilted my head and looked at him, puzzled, my eyes questioning. He adjusted a few strands of hair that were slightly messed up from my running around, his voice gentle but with an underlying meaning. "Kang Tang, do you know why Ju Ye doesn't like you?" I deflated, asking sadly, "Why?" He gently smoothed my hair, his voice husky and laced with unintentional allure. "Because you don't understand men, but I do. Let me help you, okay?" He was as gentle and reliable as ever. My eyes lit up and I nodded without hesitation. "Okay." Shenku slightly narrowed his long eyes, his Adam's apple bobbing as he patted my head. "Then be a good girl and listen to me." I took the contract Shenke gave me and rushed straight to Ju Ye's place. Pinching my nose, I grimaced in disgust. "Ju Ye, what kind of place is this? Pathetic poverty, you call this a house? My dogs wouldn't even live here." His face was pale, and the woman on the bed was unconscious. I took out the contract, smiling triumphantly as I threatened and enticed. "Sign this contract, and I'll get my grandfather to hire the best team of experts to treat your mother. How's that? Juyi's eyes swept over the words master-servant contract on the paper, and his fist clenched instantly. He closed his eyes, writhing internally, and finally said with difficulty, "I'll sign." I suppressed the excitement in my heart. As expected, Shenque was right. Men are indeed detestable. You can't be nice to them. You have to torture them painfully. The deeper you torture them, the more they love you, and the less they can leave you. I added a sentence to the last page of the contract. It was a comment I once saw under a post about pets online. Puppies must never betray their owner for life. Puppies only have one owner for their entire life. Juye saw this line, and as I predicted, he lost control. His eyes bloodshot with humiliation. His fingers gripped the contract tightly, his dark eyes glaring at me. But he didn't hesitate and signed his name on it firmly. "Is this enough to satisfy you?" His bone-chilling anger made me feel a little guilty. But immediately I regained my composure. The Shang family is filthy rich. Juye is just a poor student. Why should I be afraid of him? I'm his sugar mama now, his master, and he dares to glare and threaten me. I hated his dark, cold gaze that treated me no differently than a corpse, indifferent and callous. He never smiled at me. Why couldn't he be a little obedient, indulge me a little? If he would only do as I wished, and love only me for the rest of his life, how wonderful that would be. Then, whatever he wanted, I would give him everything. But he was disobedient and wouldn't listen, always infuriating me. I hated him. I placed my left hand on his shoulder, raised my right, and slapped him. The distance was too close. His hot breath tangled with mine. His long, curved eyelashes were clear in my vision, trembling slightly, like fluttering butterfly wings. Behind those lashes were deep, gloomy eyes, filled with hatred. My heart suddenly constricted, a feeling of discomfort like a tidal wave engulfing me. Shenche once said, "A man who doesn't listen must be beaten." Beaten hard! But my fingers trembled uncontrollably, and the force of the slap on his face was as light as a caress. I was truly intimidated by him. I raised my hand again, determined to teach him a proper lesson this time. He watched my hand rise, his gaze growing even colder as if he wanted to devour me. "Can you just try it?" I took a step back, trying to maintain a strong appearance. What? What are you looking at? You're mine now. You're not allowed to look at me like that. Don't forget, I'm your mother's savior now. He took a deep breath, trying to suppress his anger, forced to bow his head and apologize to me. "I'm sorry." I haughtily raised my chin, looked at the mud clinging to my favorite shoes, and ordered, "It's all because of you being in this desolate backwater place. These are my favorite shoes. Quickly kneel down and clean them for me." His eyes immediately turned bloodshot. His fists clenched tightly, and the sound of cracking bones could be heard. I fearfully took another step back, intending to let it go, but he said coldly, "Throw him out." Shenque raised a cold eyebrow. "You dare—" I hurriedly pushed Shenque out and didn't forget to lock the door.
"An eyesore!"
After Shenque was locked out, Juye indeed knelt down on one knee, his white uniform immediately covered in dirt. He lowered his head, humiliatingly using his sleeve to wipe my shoes. I felt increasingly uneasy and recoiled my foot. Okay already, right? Not enough. He forcefully grabbed my ankle, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. He took off my shoe and used his fingers to wipe away a small smudge of mud on the back of my foot, his eyes cold. The hot sensation from his fingertips made me dizzy, and goosebumps rose all over my body. I wanted to pull my foot away, but he didn't loosen his grip at all, his fingers slowly caressing my skin. My heart was pounding like a drum, and the stuffy heat in the dimly lit space made it hard for me to breathe. Finally, he looked up and smiled at me. "Now it's done." I quickly pulled my foot back, a strange spasm in my chest causing my teeth to chatter. What should I do? I was both afraid of him and wanted to provoke him. He obediently helped me put my shoes back on, the first time he'd listened so well. I took Juye back to the villa and handed him over to the butler, Shibai. Shibai's father was the previous generation butler of the Shang family, someone who grew up with my father, and was the person he trusted most. Shibai is now the current generation butler of the Shang family, and also the person I trust most. He's not much older than me, but he arranges everything perfectly, and takes good care of me and Juye. Shibai will definitely help me tame this disobedient, vicious dog. When I woke up, Juye was already wearing a servant's uniform, pushing a cart with over a dozen breakfast items to my bedroom. He bent over, helped me change into my slippers, washed my hands clean, handed me my toothbrush, and then stood silently to one side with a towel in his hand. After finishing up, I sat down at the dining table, pointed to the seat next to me, and gestured for him to sit down. He shook his head, solemn and with a deliberately proper expression. "Servants are not allowed to eat with the young lady." I gave a cold, faint smile. "You're just being presumptuous. Who said you could eat? Warm my feet quickly." I'd been sensitive to the cold since I was little. My feet were cold year-round, and even heated floors didn't help. Before, Shubai always warmed my feet for me. He didn't talk much, but he always handled everything perfectly. He would warm his abdomen with a towel or blanket first, then take my feet and place them there, not forgetting to breathe warm air into his palms to warm my bare calves as well. Completely different from Ju Ye's reluctance. Shubai was someone without emotions, without a self. The sentence he said to me most often was, "I exist for the young mistress. As long as the young mistress is happy, Shubai will be happy." Just like a robot, Juya didn't move for a long time. I looked up at him. That humiliated expression again. I snorted and watched him slowly sit down. Without hesitation, I placed my bare feet on his thighs. His white knuckles clenched with difficulty. I raised an eyebrow, my gaze cold, and commanded in an arrogant tone, "Warm them with your hands. I discovered yesterday that your hands are very warm, extremely hot." For some reason, his hands became even hotter, and his breathing became more rapid. I narrowed my eyes, feeling comfortable, took 2 bites of a donut, and then deliberately brought the bitten part close to his mouth, humiliating him. "Good boy, eat." His lips tightened, his dark eyes deep and cold. I was both afraid and excited, glaring at him. "Eat." How dare he? Daring to disobey me, he parted his lips, took a small bite, chewed slowly, the corners of his eyes reddening and his palms becoming hotter and hotter. I happily leaned closer, playfully lifting his chin, admiring his flushed face. "Is my saliva delicious?" His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed with difficulty. He turned his face away, his voice tight. "Shut up." I kicked him and snorted softly. "Still not obedient. Tonight you're punished to kneel outside my bed and keep watch all night." He replied softly, "Okay." Shibai really taught him well. Even kneeling before my bed, something so damaging to his pride, he agreed to it. An impatient voice called from outside. I was displeased and ordered Juye, "Carry me over there." He recognized whose voice it was outside and refused. "Walk yourself." I flew into a rage, grabbed his ear and pressed him. "Why won't you carry me? Is it because your ex is here? I forbid you from talking to her. I forbid you from seeing her. You're mine now." He lowered his eyes, reluctantly allowing me to vent my anger. "Yes, I'm yours." The calling outside didn't stop. I shouted into his ear, "Carry me over there now. I want you to carry me and reject Lin Xiao Xiao." He took a deep breath, stood up with difficulty, his neck flushed red, his whole body hot. "Can I change clothes?" I pondered for a few seconds, a struggle in my head. "Fine, but be quick. Only I get to see him in that servant outfit. I absolutely won't let Lin Xiao Xiao, that awful woman, see it." After he changed, I held out my hands to him, urging him, "What are you waiting for? Pick me up now." He sighed wearily, his whole body stiff, and slowly lifted me. I playfully poked at his barely discernible pectoral muscles. So hard it makes me uncomfortable. "If you're free this afternoon, go upstairs and work out some more." He frowned. "Do you like that type?" I giggled, clinging to his neck. "No, I like the type that is you." He showed no emotion, completely ignored me, his body growing stiffer and stiffer. Annoying and so rigid, but I like it. I raised his face and gave him a sweet smile. "Juye, what I like most is how much you dislike me. I especially like it." His footsteps faltered, his dark eyes were cold. "Kang Yu, you really are sick." I rubbed my head against his neck, feeling the heat radiating from him, and yawned. "What to do? It seems only you can cure me. I don't like anyone else, I only like you." He replied coldly, "I don't like you." As if not cruel enough, he added acerbically, "I will never like you." Those heartless words pained me so much. I bit into his wrist, a salty metallic taste spreading in my mouth. He bled from my bite, His suppressed groan amplified in my ear, his brows furrowed in pain. I released my sharp teeth and licked the blood smeared around my lips. You have to hurt like I do for me to feel happy. He called me sick again. Haha, I'll just take that as a love confession. Lin Xiaoxiao stood in front of my family's villa gate, her eyes swollen like walnuts, shouting Juye's name. She called for Juye and cursed me at the same time. When she called his name, her voice was as mournful as a cuckoo calling a soul, so tragic it made you want to cry. But when she cursed me, her voice boomed like thunder, her whole face distorted with ferocity.
Scary, so scary!
She's Juye's childhood sweetheart, and the person I hate the most. Why is Juye so gentle with her but only cold to me? Every time she causes trouble or frames me, Juye never believes my words. That damn Lin Xiaoxiao? She even dared to tell Juye that I'm a beautiful but wicked good-for-nothing, failing every science subject, definitely having something wrong with my head. But that's not all. She even dared to say that if the Kang family falls into my hands, it'll definitely go bankrupt. I'm going to become the ultimate unbeatable F2 generation leech. Seething with anger, I demanded that the school board stop funding her. Juye had been cold to me for days, avoiding me whenever he saw me. Yet, for her sake, he took the initiative to come to me, reprimanding me for being inconsiderate. Thinking about that, I got even angrier, hugging Juye tightly around the neck and pinching him hard. Then, I made a funny face at Lin Xiaoxiao, who was staring blankly. She screamed shrilly, "Kang Yu, what did you do to Juye?" I smiled brightly, rubbing my head against Juye's flushed neck, then leaned against his shoulder, my voice smug and wicked. As you can see, he's mine now. Seeing Juye's pale face and Lin Xiaoxiao's pained expression, I felt even more delighted, adding fuel to the fire. I've already stamped him, understand? From now on, this person is mine, Kang Yu's. As for you, get as far away as possible. I strained my neck, almost pressing my face against Lin Xiaoxiao's, teasing her until she started crying. She's crying! She's crying! The crybaby is shedding tears! I laughed heartily without any restraint. Suddenly, Juye brought his strong, firm hand and placed it on the back of my head. My entire face was pressed tightly against his chest, to the point where I had trouble breathing. He said gently to Lin Xiaoxiao, "Go home, study hard and don't come here again." Lin Xiaoxiao ran away crying. Only then did Juye let go of me. I was so angry I was going crazy, punching his shoulder while yelling, "You like her, don't you? What's so good about that ugly little thing?" "Kang Yu!" His voice became heavy. "Don't insult people!" Furious, I shoved him away and ran straight to Shen Kuo's house without looking back. As expected, Shubai punished Juye, hitting his hand until it was swollen. Then he had to make small cakes to make amends to me. In the afternoon, he brought the finished product that he had painstakingly made all morning to Shen Kuo's house to pick me up. At that time, Shen Kuo and I were playing in the pool. Juye's face immediately turned pale. My interest was piqued again. I threw a towel at him, lay back on the chair, and ordered with my eyes closed, "Dry me off." His ears turned bright red again. I touched his face, picked up the cake, and took a bite, urging, "Hurry up." When he was wiping my feet, I deliberately used my foot to lift his chin, took a wicked bite of the cake on the fork, and sneered, "I've looked at you for so long, I'm bored. I don't think I like you that much." His face immediately turned pale. I smiled contentedly, slipping my foot inside his shirt, sliding it across his toned abdomen to warm myself. But the very next second, my smile froze. A series of strange memories suddenly flooded my mind. A mechanical voice rang in my ears, saying that I was the villainous antagonist in a novel, a fake daughter of the Kang family, and Juye, whom I had always humiliated and bullied, was the real young master of the Kang family. Years ago, when the Kang couple were kidnapped on a ferry, Madame Shang gave birth during the escape. My mother, because she didn't have money to treat my congenital heart disease, switched me and Juye while Madame Shang was unconscious. Not long after Juye was welcomed back into the family, he took power. Then he met the female lead, fell in love with her, got engaged, and got married. And I was locked up in his house. The letters I sent to my grandparents were all torn up. The two people who used to dote on me asked with contempt, how could I still have the face to live? Why hadn't I died yet? Shen Kuo, who always stood by me, now stood behind the female lead, saying I was stupid, evil, arrogant, and could never compare to the intelligent and gentle female lead. But I've been like this since the day I met him. I've never changed. The one who changed was Shen Kui. He simply loved the female lead, so he hated me. The weaknesses he once tolerated were now magnified. I didn't do anything, just existed as I was. Even Shibai, who once said he lived for me, followed the female lead. You're just a fake, not worthy of my loyalty. Everything I owned vanished overnight. No, to be precise, it returned to its original owner, because from the beginning I never had anything. The day Juye and the female lead got married, his subordinates dragged me out to sea and threw me to the sharks. My death in the book was described so casually, yet the readers cheered. I didn't even die with a whole body. It took me a long time to recover from the shock. Impossible, absolutely impossible, this is fake. Lin Xiaokao must be cursing me. Besides, how am I evil? What did I do to be considered evil? I fed Juye, gave him drinks, and even paid for his mother's medical treatment. I'm not evil at all. I'm kind and beautiful and generous too. I angrily pinched Juye's cheek, deliberately calling him puppy, gloating as I humiliated him. Puppy, once you become rich, are you planning to kill me? The boy, with a cold face and murderous eyes, replied, Yes, I will definitely kill you. The exact same words as in the book. I deliberately moved closer, gently kissed his chapped lips, and blinked coquettishly. Please don't. I'll be your puppy from now on. Please don't kill me, okay? His ears immediately turned red, and the loathing in his eyes suddenly faltered. I showed no mercy and sneered, Oh my, you lost your first kiss. Ha! There's no way I'd be his puppy. He angrily turned and left. From that day on, I started having frequent nightmares. The dreams were filled with the things that flooded my mind that afternoon, along with a repetitive, robotic voice. It told me I was the evil female supporting character in the story, that when the female lead appeared, I would die a gruesome death. Of course, I didn't believe it. So, I even invited many fortune tellers to my house to exorcise evil spirits. Until a month later, my grandfather returned from the headquarters abroad, bringing with him a gentle and intelligent girl. Her name was Wen Tang, the exact same name as the female lead in my nightmare. Wen Tang was 3 years older than me. She was studying at the business administration department of the best university in the country. Grandfather said that when he had an accident, Wen Tang happened to be passing by and saved him. After a long and winding story, he concluded with the words, Wen Tang grew up in an orphanage without parents, excelling in her studies, and will later become a valuable assistant to help you take over the Tang Corporation. Kang Chang, I have accepted her as my granddaughter. In the future, both you and Wen Tang will be my beloved grandchildren. I felt like I was struck by lightning. My whole body went cold, and I took a step back. Everything around me blurred like a mirage I couldn't wake up from. I was stuck in it. Wen Tang smiled gently, reaching out her hand to greet me. Kang Tang, hello? Like a machine, I stretched out my hand to grasp hers. The dream felt exactly like this. Wen Tang moved into my house. Everything seemed unchanged, but at the same time transformed. The 3 words, second young miss, appeared more and more frequently in my dreams. I looked around in panic. Shen Kui's gaze was drawn to her. Even Shibai, who was always indifferent and apathetic, showed emotion in response to her presence. My grandparents each held one of her hands, smiling and chatting with her. To me, those people looked like a still painting, and I was placed outside of it. Suddenly, I couldn't tell if this was a dream or reality. If it was a dream, why couldn't I wake up even when I pinched my palm until it bled? The hand on my waist grew increasingly hot. I blinked back tears, turning to see Juye's worried gaze. He caught my body, which was about to fall, his voice cold but rare in its concern. Kang Yu, why are you crying? The panic that had been suppressed along with a vague sense of fear surged back, and I choked up, crying as I spoke. Juye, you're going to kill me. His expression immediately turned cold. I looked towards Wen Tang, who was easily blending in with the crowd, my voice trembling. You'll kill me for her. Juye followed my gaze and then let out a dismissive snort. For the first time, he scolded. Kang Yu, you really are insane. Firstly, I'm the top scorer in the city. If nothing unexpected happens, I'll be the top scorer in the entire province next year. Secondly, murder is illegal. I'm not like you, I have a brain. I was stunned. I even forgot to cry. During the meal, my grandfather apologized to Juye on my behalf. This child has been spoiled since she was young. I'm truly sorry. Please forgive her. The Kang family will take full responsibility for your mother's illness. Just focus on your studies. With your grades, I'm willing to sponsor all your expenses. Young man, you have a bright future ahead of you. I bit my chopsticks, not paying attention to what my grandfather was saying. All my attention was focused on Wentang. She was sitting between Shibai and Shen Qiu. She struck up a conversation with Shen Kui. At first, he was indifferent, but after she mentioned photography, his hobby, and showed him the award she won in an international photography competition, my heart clenched as I saw the excited look in Shen Kui's eyes. He was so thrilled that he put down his chopsticks. He took Wentang's phone, full of interest. You took these photos? I'm a fan of yours, did you know? I even sent you private messages. I always thought you were a middle-aged man. They got along better and better as they talked. My hand tightened around my chopsticks, then gradually loosened, losing all strength. It was the same in my dream. Shen Qiu and Wentang became closer and closer because of photography. They got closer and closer. The future me was completely oblivious, even naively happy that he had found his true love. Shen Qiu was my childhood sweetheart, the friend I grew up with. I only wanted him to be happy. Until a national photography exhibition, Wentang replaced my submitted photo with one she took. In an instant, I was branded a thief. The whole world turned against me. Everyone wanted to punish me. And Shen Kui, the one who held my hand the year my parents passed away, promising me, Kang Chang, don't cry. I'm your brother, always your family. But when Wentang framed me, he was the first to stand up and criticize me online. He said, I know Kang you like the back of my hand. There's no way she could have taken photos like these. She's arrogant and spoiled, doesn't actually know how to do anything. She's just a thief. I tried to explain. He coldly cut me off, affirmed my guilt, and condemned me himself. He even said he felt disgusted knowing me. But clearly, when I was little, when I was bullied by the grandson of one of my grandfather's business partners, he was the one who carried me, crying his eyes out, all the way to the kid's house and beat him to a pulp. The Kang family was incomparably wealthy. The other boy's family wasn't lacking either. As a result, Shen Kui was nearly beaten to death by his stepfather and was forced to apologize. I trembled as I wiped away my tears, but my hands were shaking too much to apply the medicine properly. He laughed, took my hand, and gently dabbed my tears with a cotton swab. Don't cry, Kang Kang. I'm your older brother, and an older brother has to protect his little sister. I'm your brother, Kang Chang. Why, when the female lead appeared, did my brother stop being my brother and become a knife stabbing straight at me? Why? I don't know if what happened in the dream was real or not, but every time I think about it, my heart aches unbearably. I lowered my head, and tears unconsciously fell into my rice bowl. I wiped away my tears, as if I'd made a decision, and ran outside. Zhu Ye, Shen Ke, and Shibai all chased after me. They called my name. Then gradually it turned into scolding. They asked me why I would frame Wentang, asked if I was tired of living. I couldn't distinguish between dream and reality. I really couldn't. This was the first time I had met Zhu Ye's mother while she was lucid. I stared intently at her face, trying to find any similarities to myself. But she was gaunt from illness and had lost all her original beauty. The moment she saw me, her dead eyes lit up, then filled with confusion. She fussed for a long time, finally forcing a smile, trying to appear gentle and friendly. Young lady. At that moment, all words were buried. No need to ask anything more. But I still said, Madam Chu, could I have a strand of your hair? She was stunned, bit her lip, then shook her head. I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For a mother's selfishness, wanting her child to live, hurting an innocent boy, a boy who should have had a smooth life, full of prosperity and wealth. And I stole his life, and humiliated him like this. I walked closer, picking up a strand of hair that had fallen on her pillow. Madam Chu, Juyi and I have been desk mates for 2 years now. For the past 2 years, he has brought lunch from home every day, a balanced diet. Everyone says he's a poor student, but his clothes are always clean, and he has enough clothes for every season. I used to envy him for having a mother like you, because I've never eaten lunch cooked by my mother, and my mother never stuck notes on my lunchbox to remind me of things. Her eyes reddened, and she choked like the cry of a mother animal in pain. I looked her straight in the eyes, saying each word carefully. Perhaps you have wronged many people, but with your son you have done very well. I have no right to resent her. More than anyone, I understand my own body. Because of my heart condition, I have been close to death 3 times. If it weren't for the wealthy Kang family, no ordinary family could afford the cost. I should have died young anyway. The DNA test results were as expected. But when I actually saw it, my hands and feet were still cold. I put the test results away. From that day on, I was me, but I was also no longer me. I started actively avoiding Wentang, Juye, Shenkue, and Shibai. I even moved into the school dorm. My paternal grandparents didn't understand why. I told them I wanted to be independent. The first time I washed my own clothes, my hands were raw. It was then I realized I was completely incapable of taking care of myself. To survive, I had so much to learn. Shenchu looked for me a few times. I avoided him, not wanting to meet. The last time, he lost his temper and asked me, "Is it because of Juye that you don't need me anymore? Is that it?" I replied, "Yes." His eyes turned red, he turned away, and never looked for me again. Shibai brought my favorite food to visit. He asked me what was wrong. I threw all the food away and told him, "Don't ever appear in front of me again." He left sadly, as if used to obeying me, not daring to ask why, just quietly walking away. The leaves outside the window gradually turned yellow, preparing to enter winter. But the trees will have the chance to welcome spring again. As for me, I'm stuck in this frozen winter forever. The carefree days were over. Why is my life so cruel? Every noon and evening I went to the hospital. My mother and I spoke very little. The doctor said she had leukemia and didn't have long to live. I didn't call her mom, and she didn't say much either. We just silently glanced at each other in the quiet room. The look in her eyes was full of greed and pain, as if wanting to see enough of me for a lifetime. Every time my eyes would sting and I felt like I was sitting on a pile of fire. I wanted to call her mom, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Sometimes I met Juye at the hospital. His eyes were initially guarded, then turned to confusion. No matter how he questioned me, I just bowed my head in silence without saying a word. In the end, he asked me helplessly, "Kang Yu, what's wrong with you?" I quickened my pace, not answering. He awkwardly, clumsily stopped me, asking anxiously, "Did I do something wrong? Kang Yu, are you tired of me? Why are you tired of me? What do I have to do?" I didn't dare look at him, clenching my fingers, and said softly, "Juye, haven't you always hated me? I won't humiliate you anymore. I'm sorry for everything that happened before. Just hit me. I'll let you have your revenge." He got angry, grabbing my shoulders tightly. "What nonsense are you talking about?" He took a deep breath, paused for a long time, and then said clearly, "I don't hate you. The only reason I avoided you was because my mother was being treated at Shenkue's hospital, and I owed a huge amount of hospital fees. He said that as long as I stayed away from you, he would let the hospital continue treating my mother. Kang Yu, I washed that scarf and stored it carefully at home. Your grandfather hired the best team of specialists to take care of my mother and sponsored my education. Now I don't need to hold back anymore. The university entrance exam is coming up, and I'm going to submit an excellent transcript to your grandfather. Kang Yu, wait for me. Don't be tired of me. Don't ignore me. No one is more obedient than me. I'm your most obedient puppy." I mumbled blankly, then slapped myself. He stared at me wide-eyed. I rubbed my face and walked out dazedly. God, what is this messed up world? God! The day his mother died was an ordinary night like any other. Juye cried a lot. A piece of my heart also felt empty. Then I thought morbidly. Fortunately, there was once a person in this world who loved me without asking for anything and did all the dirty work for me. She left a short letter. Only 3 words. Sorry. If it was for Juye, both she and I should say that. If it was written for me, then it was unnecessary. The person she treated best in this world was me. The day I left Beijing was also the day Juye received his college entrance exam results. Sure enough, he was the top scorer. He sent me a picture of the small cake he made and asked if I wanted to watch the moon with him. I replied, yes, wait for me. He obediently waited. Shenqiu and Wentang went on a trip abroad to take photos. Shibai was in the kitchen researching Wentang's favorite dish. Grandparents huddled in front of the phone screen, video calling Wentang, chatting and laughing animatedly. Wentang made them laugh loudly, full of joy. My appearance suddenly felt out of place, breaking the warm scene, leaving behind an awkward and uncomfortable silence. I thought I was prepared to face it, but when I actually witnessed it, I couldn't help but feel suffocated. That night, I left without a word, leaving Juye alone to watch the moon. I sent messages to my grandparents and Juye. According to the plot, it would be another 3 years before they realized the truth, which means Juye would have to suffer for another 3 years. It's too cruel. I wrote it all out, and when I hit send, the guilt in me lessened a little. Consider this atonement. I moved to another city. The words Lin Xiaoxiao used to curse me, and Juye had now come true. I really had become a useless pretty face. I didn't know how to do anything. Leaving the protection of the Shang family, the money I earned was from being a hand model. How ridiculous. I chose a remote city. I thought that because I lacked education, finding a job would be difficult. But it turned out that because of my appearance, I was exceptionally hired as a receptionist. The beauty that I was once so proud of. Now it's something I don't want at all. Leaving the shelter of the Shang family, I realized how cruel the outside world was. Harassment from the boss and customers, alienation from colleagues, unpalatable meals, and a cramped little room had become my daily life. I cried a lot. Juye used to call me a spoiled young lady. I tried to be strong, tried to get used to the circumstances, tried to overcome them. I wanted to live. I didn't want to be shark bait. I had to support myself first, then think about what I should do. This is a coastal city. My first month's salary was only 1,600 dong. It was the first time I realized how cheap I was. It was also the first time I learned that 1,600 dong could buy so much. The older colleagues all advised me to continue studying. They told me that education was the only Wentang, sanctuary escape, for the poor. Even the boss, after harassing me, sighed and said, "How about I send you to school?" I shook my head. I understood my academic abilities clearly. It would just be a waste of money. I thought of Juye again. 2 years as desk mates, I was the one who forced him to sit next to me. What I saw most was his back hunched over doing homework. Back then, I often laughed at him. What's the point of studying so much? You'll end up working for me anyway, right? Every gesture and action exudes the air of a wealthy and powerful young master. And me, after 6 years living in this ordinary city, have been changed by the dust and grit of life. I was both surprised and sad. I never thought that one day, standing before him, I would feel inferior. I stood in the bright light outside the door, forcing a carefree smile. "Little pup, long time no see." I walked towards him with the comb, my eyes curved in a smile, trying to ease the awkwardness. "What kind of haircut do you want? We're so close, I won't charge you anything." "Huh? Why is he crying?" He clenched my hand tightly, his eyes reddening little by little, and then suddenly pulled me into his arms. My eyes widened, still holding the comb in my hand. His voice was hoarse, choked with emotion. "You liar." I felt a pang of guilt and lowered my hand. He said, "Kang Yu, I've been looking for you for 6 years, 6 whole years. Why isn't a puppy allowed to betray its owner, but the owner can abandon the puppy so easily? Why? Do you know how sad I've been?" His tears mingled with his hot breath, burning my neck. Ow! He suddenly bit down hard on my neck, the pain making my whole body tremble. "It's bleeding!" "It's definitely bleeding." "Juye, you really are a dog." I cried out in pain. He released his teeth and brought his wrist to my face. On that wrist, the mark I had bitten 6 years ago had not completely healed. "Does it hurt?" "But Kang Yu, I hurt too. Why don't you ever think about me?" 6 years ago, the day I left the Shang family, everyone frantically searched for me. My traces were erased as if by someone, completely disappearing from the world. As I expected, Juye said, "It was Wen Tang. Even now, I still don't know what she did." After graduation, Juyo took over the Shang family, while Wen Tang received all the love from our grandparents. Shenxia and Shibai also became her capable assistants. As expected, Grandpa asked Juye to marry Wen Tang. Juye grasped my hand tightly and whispered, "Wen Tang's existence is so strange. Grandpa, Grandma, Shenkuo, Shibai, it's like they've forgotten him, as if in that house he never existed. I often wonder, did he really exist? Why is it that only I remember him but I can't find him?" His voice trembled slightly, full of confusion. I told him everything that had happened in my dream. In his astonished gaze, I spoke my end. "In a month, on the day you and Wen Tang get married, you'll throw me into the sea to be shark bait. My end is to die in the belly of a shark, not in one piece." The image of my death kept flashing in my head. At first I was very scared, but now I'm not anymore. Juye, my feelings for you are complicated. I owe you. I don't know how to face you. Just hate me. I took out my bank card. Inside was the money I had saved over the past few years. My mother was wrong. She deserved to die. But I'm not innocent either. This is the money I saved. I know you don't need it now, but maybe this will help me feel a little better. I bowed my head, staring at my shoes, then suddenly looked up, gazed at the clear blue sky and smiled with relief. Actually, I'm really looking forward to my end. I've lived in pain for too long, not knowing how to atone for the mistakes my mother made. I should have died from illness a long time ago. For 20 years, I lived like a thief, enjoying a carefree life of wealth and luxury. Finally, I only ask you one thing. I have a cat. After I die, will you help me take care of it? It's very well behaved. Even though it's blind and limps, its sense of smell is very keen. It finds food on its own, and it even finds the litter box to bury its droppings. I kept rambling on about my cat, talking until my throat was dry, before I realized that Juye hadn't said anything from beginning to end. Did you hear everything? I nodded. He gave a faint smile, a smile that was both cold and pained. 6 years apart, and all you have to say to me is to make arrangements for my funeral. Even a cat is more important than me. But Kong Yu, what would I gain from taking your life? What's done is done and cannot be changed. But if we are already bound together... He tightened his grip on my hand. Then let's be bound for life. Death is the end, a relief. Living is suffering, is atonement, isn't it? Yes, living is atonement, is torment. Juyo took me, along with the cat, back to Beijing. He publicly announced our wedding. Wen Tang, with a grim expression, approached me and said, "You're still alive?" Indeed. It was hard to believe that someone like me could survive on my own. My paternal grandparents were indifferent to me, while Shen Kui and Shubai still surrounded Wen Tang. She smiled smugly. "What do you have left now?" As soon as she finished speaking, the police entered and handcuffed her. "Ms. Wen, you are suspected of embezzling company funds and tax evasion. Please come with us." My paternal grandparents wanted to settle things amicably, and Shen Kui and Shubai also tried to help her. But Juye was resolute. They couldn't sway him. I thought everything would end there. But on the day of my wedding with Juye, when Tang suddenly rushed in, wielding a knife and stabbing towards Juye. "You ruined me, ruined everything I had. I was so close to escaping this world." I managed to shield Juye and the knife pierced me. Juye was safe. I clutched my bloodied abdomen, feeling dizzy. Juye panicked, completely at a loss. I sighed in relief and started to laugh. I raised his distraught face, wiped away his tears, and said happily, "You know, I've been in so much pain too, but I didn't know what to do." "What should I do, Juye?" One night I fell from the clouds. It was like a ridiculous joke. I don't know how to face you. I owe you, but I can't repay you. I can only run away. I miss you too. I like you so much, how could I not miss you? Fortunately, today I've repaid you. I slowly closed my eyes, the sound of his crying in my ears. Finally, I don't owe him anymore. Juya's side story. I was born without a father. My mother was a very resilient woman. She named me Juya, hoping I could grow up strong and wild. In my memory, our family wasn't really poor. But because Mom worked as a cleaning lady, and I stayed home to cook for her, I forgot to turn off the stove. Our house caught fire, and it spread to the neighbor's house. My family immediately fell into heavy debt. I thought Mom would beat me black and blue. The child next door would get beaten by their parents for even getting a bad grade. I was ready to be beaten. But my mother just forced a smile, signed the debt note, apologized to the people, and then went home to clean up the ruins. The house was uninhabitable. She took me back to our hometown. She hugged me and stroked my head. She didn't scold me or hit me. She only blamed herself for not keeping a closer eye on me. My mother was actually a hot-tempered person. She often argued loudly with others. But with me, she was always gentle, even somewhat humble. She no longer worked as a cleaning lady, but followed the builders in the village to learn how to build houses and do interior work. No matter how busy she was, she always came home on time to cook for me. From a young age, she agreed to everything I wanted. She always found a way to give me what I needed. I didn't know what to do to repay my mother. The only way was to bury myself in my studies. In my high school years, thanks to my excellent grades, I was accepted into a prestigious school, which not only waived tuition, but also provided a high scholarship. My desk mate was a very beautiful young lady. That was the first time I met a girl so refined and beautiful. She always smelled wonderful, completely unlike any girl I had ever known. She came from a wealthy background, so she was very arrogant. She changed her hairstyle every day, and her clothes too. I never saw her wear the same outfit twice. I couldn't stand the way she would take out her mirror and admire herself during class, even though she was beautiful. I somewhat resented her laziness and lack of effort in studying, until she brought a box of pastries and placed it in front of me, took my hand, and pleaded coquettishly, "Kind deskmate, please help me with my homework, okay?" Her hands were so small, so white, so soft, but I still refused. She didn't get angry. She just repeated her trick with the boy sitting at the desk behind me. He agreed and she was visibly happy. I felt uncomfortable. Such a flirtatious little miss. She didn't discriminate between boys and girls. She was the same with everyone. That night, I dreamed about her. I woke up drenched in sweat. From then on, I didn't dare look at her directly anymore. But she kept clinging to me. She came close to me, pleaded, shared food with me, and even said, "Julia, why don't you like me? Like me, and I'll be good to you later." But it was obvious she was nice to everyone. That kindness wasn't meant just for me. I didn't need it. I started losing focus frequently. Then she got angry and gave me the cold shoulder because I rejected her confession. She didn't talk to me. I was miserable. For the first time in my life, I got a homework assignment wrong. I started resenting her for bewitching me. During summer vacation, my mother contracted leukemia from too much exposure to substandard building materials. When it was discovered, she left behind a sum of money enough for me to study until I graduated from university. And then, she jumped into the river and killed herself. It was so close, but we couldn't save her. That year I was 17 years old, as if awakened by a blow. The entire sum of money was spent, but my mother's condition didn't improve. Finally, a boy named Shenquei approached me. He demanded that I stay away from the young lady. He said I wasn't worthy. He said someone poor like me should be rotting in the mud, and had no right to dream of reaching for the moon in the sky. He was right, I wasn't worthy. I tried harder to study, working part-time while attending school. I longed to escape this dark world. I tried to distance myself from her, but she was oblivious, clinging to me time and time again. "Julia, what do you like about me?" The girl with the sweetest smile, the most innocent face, spoke the most vicious words. "I only like you because you don't like me." So that's how it was. I was just a toy for the young lady to find amusement in. How ridiculous, how hateful. She easily kissed me, teased me. When I had fallen deep, she no longer needed me. No one could be worse than her. The day I learned I was the heir to the Thuong family, my mind was in turmoil. My mother's confession before she died, along with her choked sobs of regret. She begged me not to take revenge on Kang Yu. How laughable. I didn't pity myself, instead I thought, the fragile young lady, spoiled since she was a child, never having experienced any hardship. What would happen if she knew the truth? She'd probably die. I instinctively wanted to hide this. It turns out I'm just a fool captivated by her appearance. Everything happened just as I predicted. Just wait a little longer and I'll come of age. I will marry her. No one will know she isn't the Thuong family's daughter. Everything will sink into oblivion with my mother. But I didn't expect her to be the one to reveal everything. Right after I threw the phone down, I received a call from Kang Yu. I've been waiting for her all night. But instead of her, I received only a letter and a disconnected phone number. In a single night, she vanished from my world. I couldn't find her. I almost went insane. She truly left without a trace of regret. She really was a terrible woman. Not worthy of pity. She should have been locked away in my house, isolated from the world, only allowed to see me, and belong only to me, for the rest of her life. I sat waiting outside the operating room. Today was supposed to be my wedding day, a wedding no one supported. But it didn't matter, I loved her. Other people's opinions didn't matter. 6 years, enough time for me to understand my own heart. I clasped my hands together, praying to all the gods and Buddhas in heaven to save my wife. She was beautiful and kind, only a little bad-tempered, but only with me. I willingly accepted that. I was ready to endure it. The moment I opened my eyes, the operating room doors opened as well. The gods and Buddhas finally took pity on me. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please give Lovecraft Audio a like and subscribe to motivate me to create more great videos. Thank you all so much.